Hi, my name is Mariel Belanger, and right now we are at Soochinoot Youth Centre. It's an urban Aboriginal youth centre that was founded in 1999 by the First Nations Friendship Centre.
What challenges did your people face in the past, and what do they face today?
In 1492, Christopher Columbus landed, and thus began the crusade to end the lives of First Nations people on Turtle Island, as it's called. Since colonization, First Nations people have been subject to genocide, to treated like animals, herded into cattle trucks, taken from their parents, and basically left in the hands of people who shouldn't actually have been caring for kids. And residential schools is one of the most painful legacies in all of North America. The concept was to take the children from the savages and teach them how to be good Christian children. Only basically what it did is it broke families for generations to come, and it created a very painful divide between Canadians and First Nations people.
How has immigration influenced the development of our community?
In terms of creating a multicultural Canada, it's beneficial to everyone, as all of the people of the world come to Canada for salvation and for the hope of having a better life. So I think a really nice concept. The Browns Creek watershed dispute with Tolko, that is very prevalent, and it touches on a whole lot of different issues. For example, the federal government has jurisdiction over First Nations people in Canada. So technically the province can't tell First Nations people what they can and can't do in terms of Canadian law. That's the way that the federal government has allowed it to become. So when the province grants different licensings to corporations, for the most part they disregard all that the First Nations people are supposed to be in control of. And the federal government just kind of, pushes it aside. It's not something that they deal with properly. Along with land claims, there's quite a few different land claims that are happening within the area, including the commonage. And when the developments happen on the mountains up there, it's kind of like, well, they shouldn't really be developing up there anyway. Not only does it displace the animals, but it's an issue that hasn't been dealt with in terms of land claims.
What do you think would make our community better regarding immigration?
Patience and understanding. I believe that's true for everyone. Since this center has opened, it has definitely helped increase graduation rates among First Nations youth within the community, as well as it's helped a lot of youth find who they are and what their lineage is and what their culture is. Like this particular one here, this girl that created that, she had no clue that her father was actually a hereditary chief until we said, hey, let's examine what your background is. And so now it's something that she's very proud about.
Where did it all come from?
Everywhere.
Everywhere?
The kids that come to our center are, I'd say the majority of them are Okanagan Band members. But we have a growing population of urban First Nations youth, and people come from everywhere. We have some students that are Mohawk, that are Ojibwe, that are Newhalk. Newhalk is from Bellacoola. We've had some from up north in the Yukon. They've just families wherever they move from and come here, and they discover who they are, or they already know who they are, and they've found us through the schools or through their own research, or just being brought up with us, because we do a lot of work for kids from age 10 to 18 and older.
And then from there on, they're on their own?
Well, no, we have a lot of kids who do come back. And then we, like in the summertime, we'll offer student employment. And like the ones that have graduated, they'll come back and be like the mentors for the summer. So for the most part, we have a lot of contact with, I'd say, at least 50% of the students that we've had through our programs.
Oh, how low was it before the student center?
Primarily before before we had this program here, there wasn't any kind of outreach for First Nations youth. The only time that there was through the band, and that was generally for Okanagan students. And so the urban population kind of got left out.
Do you also use the center to plan like cultural events? Or?
We have a friendship center, which is located about 2 blocks south that way.
Oh.
And so there's a whole bunch of different departments, and it depends on what activities it is. Like we pretty much do all the youth-oriented activities here. They also have a prenatal program and a education employment program, as well as just general social services programs through the Friendship Center. And but yeah, we'll go together for staff meetings and start and plan for different activities, like the Aboriginal Day in the Park, and they've been doing some literacy events at the library and such.
Do you think that people in our community are well educated on First Nations people?
No, sadly, no.
How do you think that we could change that?
I think that if education institutes were to open their minds to the concept that there's like 600 different languages within Canada for First Nations people, and we all don't know Mohawk, and we all don't know, like Haidegua or Ojibwe or Algonquin or whatever the main ones are that are only taught in high schools and elementary schools. That there are a variety of localized communities that schools should be utilizing, their knowledge and their history. I know here we've been fortunate that Okanagan culture has been incorporated into the social studies programs, which is really great. However, it's not the case across Canada.
So you think Okanagan has been actually doing a all right job in trying to teach other people about First Nations?
I think they're on the road. For instance, when my daughter was in grade 3, we lived in Ontario, and we went to they went to a little school. And in grade 3, you have your first exposure to First Nations culture. And at that time, we had gathered quite a bit of information about her culture from her dad, and we had a lot of books on it. And they were supposed to do a presentation on First Nations culture. Only they weren't allowed to use their own culture. So that was pretty. It was pretty much a blow for us that we couldn't even take the opportunity to teach the other kids about one of their own classmates. On the whole, as Canadians, we are quite fortunate because we do have a lot of benefits to help us stay within the top majority in Western culture. However, we do need to be more critical of what happens behind closed doors in terms of First Nations people, and be open to learning more about the real history that happened, not just the history books, what the history books tell us. When there are confrontations on the news and in the radio and in the paper, to maybe take a step back from the anger that initially people feel and think about why that community or why those people are out there in the first place.